Hey everybody, Tony D and little Joan here with a final hot take of the evening. And I'm taking a few takes and I don't quite have my brain wrapped around this one, but I'm going to try again. So, Tim Pool is constantly pushing this idea of civil war, which I don't quite believe. But then I got to thinking today, things are very cyclical in the world, right? Things happen, like the trends. Like I've always said that Antifa is a trend and the trend will end. This progressivism, it's a trend. We had this trend in the 60s and 70s and it just burned out. People were sick of it and they just abandoned it. They just abandoned it in droves. It became, the hippie stuff was cool in the late 60s into the early 70s, but very quickly it became a television trope. Like every cop show had some hippie protagonist that, was trying to change the world and bring about peace, but couldn't get his life together. And, the cop would try to help him. And sometimes he'd die in a hail of bullets. And sometimes he'd get his life together and realize, well, I can kind of be a hippie and kind of have a life and, everything in between. But it just got co-opted and the whole hippie movement became nothing. And it became like a facade that everybody would sort of put on, right? So like the 70s was that time when it was like, they weren't hippies, but some of the stuff from the hippies had sort of permeated into the culture, and that was hip and cool. But like hip and cool, like your mom is hip and cool, right? Like some of the styles and the fashion and the culture. And then, by the 80s, like Beatles music, which was so wild and revolutionary 20 years prior, was like baby music. And that's the way the cycles go. It's usually about 20 years. So maybe we're in a very quick cycle because it feels to me like Antifa showed up in 2016. It had been around, but it hadn't been a significant force. And then suddenly, in 2016, doggy, it was there. There was a lot of people. They seemed to be better organized. And there seemed to be a lot of anger there that wasn't there before. Now, it doesn't take a tremendous amount of people to do this kind of stuff, but there were enough to cause the problem. And enough that they got cred on the internet. It used to be back in the day it was TV, but now it's the internet. They got cred on the internet. And that street cred translated into other people like, yeah, I got to get in on this stuff. Ooh, this is cool, man. We're going to go around in black hoodies and we commit crimes and, but it's cool because, we're for BLM. So it's all right for us to commit crimes because we're doing it for a good reason. And, people have signed on for that. Well, now it's getting long in the tooth, right? People are sick of it. Some people are going to jail. Now we've had this murder and the feds finding the guy and killing him because he wouldn't surrender. Apparently, it's all getting old and it's being called out. So the cycle is quicker. Instead of 20 years, and really it wasn't 20 years for the hippie movement. I mean, you're talking, like 68, 67-ish, it kind of sort of starts. Maybe 65, like the beatniks sort of morph into the hippies over a couple of years. And by 68, everybody's got long hair and marching around. And by 72, it's dying. And by 74, people are sick of it and the war ends. And that's about it. It's just over. It's over. By 74, it's sort of done. And then, there's like 5 years of like, what are we doing this for? Why do we have the long hair and doing the hippie stuff? Like, we've moved on. So with Antifa, the same thing is going to happen with all this radical progressive nonsense. At some point, they're just going to be too old for this, too stupid, and too, it's just going to be pathetic. to be an Antifa and riot in the streets, because they will have been exposed for what they are. I mean, this guy, look, you can call him a hero all you want, Antifa, and they're trying to make him into a martyr. You're not getting down. They're trying to make him into a martyr, but there's only so much mileage you can get out of that. Right, little Joan? Right, little Joan? Look into the camera, little Joan. There's no getting around that he killed a guy on the street, and a guy that didn't seem to be threatening him, although he contended that. And what kind of hero is that? It's not a hero. You're not a hero if you murder some rando on the street just because for his political beliefs. And even some of the college kids who aren't totally indoctrinated into this, I'm sure, are starting to chafe under the weight of all this. They're starting to realize, wait a minute, this is serious. People are really getting hurt. People are dying. I don't want to die in the street. And you got to think about that yourself, Antifa guys. Do you really want to die in the street for a movement that after this election won't serve any purpose for the Democratic Party? When that money dries up for you, the money you've been getting through various groups, when the support dries up for you and you have to do this all on your own and against all odds, and you've always said that the neolibs weren't on your side anyway, they're just convenient. When all that money dries up and you're forced to do this yourself, and you're forced to live in a homeless camp in a tent made of plastic on the edge of Portland in the winter, I don't think you're going to be protesting. I think the protest will be done, and you'll go home and say, oh, I'm going back to college, Mom and Dad, with no criminal record. Well, what happened to your friend Bill? Oh, Bill, he's in jail for 10 years. Oh my God, that's horrible. Well, what happened to Kylie, that girl you were dating? Oh, she was horribly injured during one of the riots, and she's still in therapy, in physical therapy. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Plus, she quit the movement, won't talk to me anymore. Oh my God, that's awful. And you're just going to go back to school, huh? Well, yeah, I mean, assuming that the school will even be functional, because, with the beer virus, and we did burn down a few of the buildings on campus, and math is racist, and I was a math major. It's going to be tough, but I'll make it. So I think these cycles die out quicker and quicker. I think this entire cycle is done this year. I do. The holidays are coming. Winter is coming. Last year, it's Game of Thrones. This year, it was rioting. Next year, we're on to something completely different. The cycle grinds on quicker than people can actually get their brains behind a civil war. And understand, it's also about people's brains. It's mostly mental. That guy who was just killed by the feds, the Antifa suspected shooter, he believed he was in a civil war, just like these crazies back in the 60s, just like Charlie Manson. Charlie Manson believed that there was a race war coming, and that he would be crowned king of the white people, and he would lead people into a new age, or some such nonsense he believed, at least back in the day. I don't know if he believed that when he was in prison his entire life. But you hear these Antifa, these hardcore Antifa supporters, and they believe that kind of nonsense. They believe that, yes, a war is coming. It's also very ominous. The Weather Underground, those people, yeah, they believed it too. And the people who got caught up in it, I just watched Paul Joseph Watson's video. Great video today, by the way. Him and Razor Fist, two great videos today. Got to see them. Razor's was on comics, but Paul Joseph Watson's was on the Marxists. And he showed a clip of a former person involved in the Weather Underground talking about grad students sitting around and talking about Marxist ideas, talking about re-education camps, and how they would probably have to kill, about 25 million people. And they seriously discussed how they might go about doing that. You know, the hardcore people who couldn't be re-educated, how they'd have to eliminate them. That's the banality of evil, I guess. So the cycle is so quick, you know, these people can't even process it that quick. I think that's part of the issue here. Like, if this had been going on for 10 years, then yeah, maybe we'd be in a civil war because, 10 years of this stuff would grind people on. We've only been doing this for 6 months. Not even. I mean, the riots haven't been going on that long. I mean, the beer riots started in March. The riot started in June. So it's just a perfect storm of stuff. At the end of this year, it'll be Christmas, and people will be like, F this. I'm going home to the family. I'm going to open some presents and hang out, and it's going to be great. And then next year, we'll be on to something else because the election will be over. Trump will be the winner. The Democrats will be picking up the pieces and screaming, "You cheated! You cheated!" Even after they tried to cheat every possible way. Remember, a lot of them are lawyers. Lawyers are supposed to do everything possible for their client, but it's supposed to be within the law. But I think that mentality kind of transfers over into politics, and what is legal and illegal in the world of politics is a little tougher to discern sometimes, and certainly what's ethical and not ethical is definitely hard to discern in that world. So I think the cycle is going so fast and picking up so much speed. We're going to be out of this when the election is over. And it's just a mental thing. It's a psyop that these guys are trying to do. They're trying to make you believe that this is the end. That you are all going to die if Trump is reelected. Or these, crazy college kids are going to burn down the state. They can only do that if people go, oh my God, they're burning down the state. They're not. There's less than probably 10,000 of these idiots. And they're probably, in the same number range as the white supremacists that they claim to fight. And those guys would say all this crazy stuff too. And sometimes they would do all these crazy things, and get violent. These leftists are getting violent in a slightly different way, but it's that horseshoe effect. They're different, but they're very similar, and they're coming together in their racism and in their hatred of the system. So I guess what I'm saying to wrap this whole thing up is hang on. Hang on. I know it looks bad, but the election will be a total landslide for Trump and the GOP. Remember to vote. Remember to vote in person. And, just steel yourselves and prepare yourselves for the worst. And in a few months, this is all going to start to settle down, and we're going to have a nice Christmas, and then we're going to be on to 2021 and whatever the hell the next crisis is. If I had to bet, I'm going to go with aliens. Yeah, aliens are going to land here in 2021, and we're going to forget all about this politics stuff as Donald Trump shakes hands with the first alien ever to visit Earth.